And nice to have you aboard here on a Saturday morning at the midway point of Week 10 of the 2026 PGA Tour season. The tour is in its final week of the Florida Swing at the Valspar Championship. And really, what a couple weeks it's been on the Sunshine State when you really think about it. You know, you had your first week in the Cognizant Classic at PGA National where, we saw an Open champion in Shane Lowry. He looked to have the tournament in his hands, ended up surrendering a big lead on the last three holes to one Nico Echeverria, IMG alum Nico Echeverria. Week 2, we get Bay Hill, where another established vet in Daniel Berger looks to be cruising, looks to be possibly getting his first win in a while. And you had a 24-year-old in Akshay Bhatia win his third PGA Tour event at Arnie's Place, and what a playoff that was with Berger getting up and down in regulation on 18 to get in the playoff, and obviously love what we've seen from Akshay and Joe Greiner. Akshay finally has a caddy that he actually likes to speak to, that he actually feels is on his level. That was great to see at Bay Hill, but once again, another big-time veteran collapse. Well, Berger, not as much of a collapse as Lowry in Palm Beach, not as much of a collapse as Oberg at the Players last week. But Berger missed those two fairways, once in regulation, one in the playoff, missed those two fairways to really give Akshay Bay Hill. Great fight between those two, great tournament. And so was last week with Cam Young. I mean, I thought it was so fitting. We bring on the legends of the game last week. We bring on Tom Kite. We bring on John Mahaffey. Both of those guys won the Players in comeback fashion. And I thought that was so fitting because no less than a day later, I'm watching another American in Cam Young come back from 4 down on Sunday to beat Matt Fitzpatrick, the X-Man, Robbie McIntyre. Great to see Robert McIntyre. Great to see his game back. If you get a chance to watch Robert over the next 2 weeks in Houston or San Antonio, it's going to be great to have the tour coming through here. Robert, to me, right now, is the best putter that you could watch over the next 2 weeks, and also into Augusta if you're going to the Masters. I don't think there's anyone on the planet putting better than Robert McIntyre. And last week, kind of the rest of his game finally joined the show, and he had a great top 5 finish at the Players. Big game Bobby is what they call him. He really didn't show up at any of the first 7, 8 tournaments of the year. And then we did week 9 at the Players. Turns his game up a notch, top 5 there. That leaderboard was simply phenomenal. Cam Young, Xander Schauffele, Fitzpatrick. How about Bobby McIntyre? How about shooter Sean Yelamaraju with a top 10 at the Players? This is I believe a 25-year-old Canadian. Let me confirm Shooter Sean's age. This is a guy who really didn't play a lot of golf growing up. Yeah, he's 24, Shooter Sean. Didn't go to college, turned pro, straight out of the gate, and he completely self-taught himself as far as the world of golf. Taught himself through YouTube. I love his game. I love his tempo. I love the time that he allows his swing to set in the backswing. And, I mean, these last 25 events for him, he gets his PGA Tour card off the Korn Ferry Tour at the end of 25. And then to start this year, he finished tied 13th in his first event at the Sony, missed cut at the Amex, made the cut at Torrey, made the cut in Phoenix, top 20 at Palm Beach, 37th at Puerto Rico, then tied 5th last week at the Players Championship. So I thought the top five of that leaderboard was really just star-studded, and then you had your one dog story in Yellow Miraju. But really the top 10 at the Players last week, Cameron Young at 13 under, Matt Fitzpatrick at 12 under, Xander Schauffele at 11 under, Robert McIntyre at 10 under, Shooter Sean at 9 under, and then you had Ludvig Oberg and it tied for 5th at 9 under as well. Ludvig had a 3-shot lead going into the back nine last week, and this is one of my favorite players on the PGA Tour. There's no doubt. 26 years old, out of Texas Tech, from Sweden. His game is in a wonderful spot approaching the first major of the year. But, a ton of people forget that what we saw out of Oberg, and no one brought this up this past week with the Masters just around the corner. Everyone forgets that Oberg had last year's Masters in his hands. I believe he was at 9 or 10 under. McIlroy and Rose went to a playoff at 11 under. Yeah, Oberg gave up 4 shots on the 71st and 72nd hole of this past year's Masters. He was standing on 17 tee box, needing to play the last 2 and 1 under to get into a playoff. And he makes triple on 17 and then bogey on 18. Now, he is 24. He is 26. Oberg is 26. He has one of the best golf swings in the world. I'm not going to sit here and call him a choker. Maybe we can have a different conversation on Shane Lowry and what happened in Palm Beach. What happened with Ludvig on 11 and 12 at Sawgrass. He tries to go for a par 5 and 2 with a 5-wood. Fans it right. Left side. It just didn't quite get all the way over his left side. And he overcorrects on the next tee box, pulled another 5-wood or 3-wood in the water on 12, and then came in at even par. Played 17 and 18 fine all week, but that was a painful one. I mean, that was another collapse. I'm not going to call Oberg a choker. 26 years old, 2 PGA Tour wins, 1 at Sea Island, 1 at Torrey Pines. Contended in a lot of great tournaments already at a young age. Looking forward to seeing what Oberg can do as far as the major season. Can he get his first and kind of offset what just happened at Sawgrass? We'll find out. As far as what's going on at Valspar, how about Sung J M, the Prince, with a 1-shot lead going into the weekend, opening 64-69. Innisbrook is such a good test. I believe it's one of the better tests on the PGA Tour. Most years when you get your standard wind and maybe a little bit of rain in the Tampa area, the 4-round winning scores here can be, 7, 8, 9 under. It is a tough test when guys on tour cannot get to 10 under. Cannot get to double digits under par over 4 rounds. It's a good test. You don't see that on the West Coast. You'll see the tour players come to Texas. They might go 27 under next week in Houston. San Antonio has some good teeth to that golf course, the Oaks course at TPC San Antonio. That's a good test. But out of the Texas swing, the tour players will destroy Memorial Park because it's wide open with no trees. Memorial Park, a great test around the greens. Love the undulations. Love the creativity that players have to bring out around the greens at Memorial Park. You'll see some guys hit some hybrids around the greens, chip little 7/8s. I like that. You don't see that a lot. But off the tee, watch out for the Minwoo Lees and the Aldrich Pot Eaters of the world in Houston next week and in Dallas. What I'm trying to say is 2 of the 4 Texas swing events are Birdie Fest. Houston Memorial Park, Dallas at TPC Craig Ranch, 2 birdie fests. It is what it is. Fort Worth, Colonial, and San Antonio, Texas Open, are 2 awesome tests. San Antonio is it the most walkable course for for Barney at the bar looking to come out and walk. A 9 with Jordan Spieth or Scotty Scheffler. Now the Oaks course at TPC San Antonio is a hike. But Memorial Park's a great walking course. Once again, I'm fired up to have the tour in Houston next week. Most of the elite players will do their prep 2 weeks before in Houston. We did hear, we're going to hear from Jordan Spieth and Matthew Fitzpatrick in today's show. I was surprised to hear from them in their post-round press conference yesterday that both of them, Fitz and Spieth, Fitz for sure is taking 2 weeks off before the Masters. He's not going to play Houston, not going to play San Antonio. Spieth has not made a decision yet. Definitely not going to play Houston. He has not made a decision on San Antonio. Would be fun to see him teed up there with how well he's playing right now. I mean, you look at Spieth's scorecard at the Valspar Championship, and he is so close. I mean, he was right there at the Players last week and made a couple big numbers over the weekend. You look at yesterday, Spieth's 3 under through 15. Spieth's at 3 under total. Open 69 in round 1, shot 2 under. You look at this round 1 scorecard for Spieth. He's 5 under through 7. In fact, he was 5 under through 15 in the opening round. And he closed double on 16, par on 17, bogey on 18 to shoot 2 under. Big momentum killer. And in the second round, he almost did the exact same thing, except he started on 10 and he bogeyed his last 2 holes on 8 and 9. Spieth says he feels amazing. The stats would indicate he's top 20 in every category on the PGA Tour. But Spieth says, his putt, his overall scoring is just not in the best of place. Hitting bad tee shots at inconvenient times, not missing in the right spots, making poor decisions. I love the honesty from Spieth, and I think, with the way he's been going and the way he's been getting his game back. I mean, look at Spieth these last 3 events: 12th at Riviera, 11th at Bay Hill, 32nd at the Players last week due to a couple big numbers. God, if he can just start putting a couple more drives in the fairway and get hot with the putter like we saw back in 15. Watch out for Jordan Spieth come the first 2 majors of the year at Augusta and Aronimink. And I'll tell you, we gotta go to break, but the player to really watch out for this week, and we'll talk about him going into the weekend at Valspar, Brooks Koepka at 4 under par, 5 shots back of a very a top of a leaderboard that, Sung Jae is a winner. I love his game, respect him. He's really come around with the irons. He had to weather an injury. About 4 or 5 weeks, got a wrist injury due to the work he was doing over in South Korea, doing some military training. I'm not going to say Sung Jae is inexperienced. But when you look at the rest of this leaderboard, David Lipsky, European winner, hasn't won here. Doug Gim, great college player out of University of Texas, hasn't won on the PGA Tour. Chandler Blanchet, contended in Puerto Rico, but and had a excellent season on the Korn Ferry Tour last year, winning their tour championship. But we haven't heard Blanchet's name a lot. How about Marco Ping tied 5th at 5 under, and it's you have a 5-way tie at 5 under, 4 back. It's Marco Ping, Englishman. Great to see him back in the saddle after his newborn baby got out of the NICU after a 3-week visit there. Great to see everyone in the Ping family is well and healthy. Matt Fitzpatrick is 5 under in a tie for 5th. I mean, how many times is he going to knock on the door before he closes? We have and I know we got to cut the break, Ryan. Fitzpatrick is another excellent look, a guy who has been there almost week in and week out since he was beating Rory on Sunday at the DP World Tour Championship, taking his crown. So this is going to be an excellent weekend at the Valspar. I see some guys coming out of nowhere. I see some elite talent down the leaderboard that I like. We'll get into all of it. This is the Golf Hour on ESPN Houston, and if you're listening to the Golf Hour, I'm guessing you're a golf enthusiast, so you need to know about the upcoming Texas Golf Expo. April 3rd and the 4th, the Texas Golf Expo, presented by Avid Golfer, makes its first visit to Houston's NRG Park. Come demo the newest clubs and save on equipment and apparel from all major brands. You can also discover new golf brands and check out a World Long Drive qualifier happening at the Expo. And get this, the first 500 people each day get a goodie bag packed with, discounted rounds. You get a discounted round at Tour 18. You'll get a discount to Travis Matthew clothing, pick up a sleeve of golf balls. Plus, all attendees receive a round of golf. Once again, April 3rd, April 4th, Texas Golf Expo, NRG Park. All attendees receive a round of golf at either the golf club at Cinco Ranch or Clear Creek Golf Club. And everyone who walks into NRG Park on the 3rd and 4th, you will get a free chance to putt for $5,000. I'll be broadcasting live there Saturday. Come by and say hello. The Texas Golf Expo, April 3rd and 4th at NRG Park. Get your tickets now at texasgolfexpo.com. Once again, that is texasgolfexpo.com.
This is the Golf Hour
on ESPN 97.5 and the ESPN Houston app.
From the Huntington Bank Studios, here's Will Doctor.
All right, here we go now. Valspar Championship, great weekend ahead. Think about this before we start this segment. Victor Hovland and Justin Thomas were the top two names at the end of the week at the Valspar last year. I don't think either one of them broke 70 over the first two rounds. Let me double check this. I believe that Victor Hovland won at 11 under last year, 27 years old. That was his 7th PGA Tour victory. And Victor shot 70-67. So he was in a good spot through two rounds. But Justin Thomas last year, he opened 73-70 and then stormed back with weekend rounds of 65-66. So I think the lead right now, Sung J M at 9 under. I think you have guys at 4 under is definitely in this golf tournament. Bridgman, Finau, Koepka, especially at 55-1. That's in this golf. Corey Connors is at 4 under, two-time Valero Texas Open winner. And then at 3 under, 3 under you got guys like Jordan Spieth. It's interesting how Rico Hoey has had a decent start. He is actually putting it much better, and it's good to see him make a cut on a tough golf course in Innisbrook that really doesn't suit his game. But anyways, Patrick Cantlay is there at 3 under. Billy Horschel. You could see this leaderboard change a lot after today. Let's hear from some of these leaders. When Sung J M, when he was speaking in his post-round presser yesterday, he talked how it had been a while since he's been atop the board. Last year was a major struggle for Sung Jae, particularly because of the iron game, the second shot. It just wasn't all that sharp. The last time I think we saw Sung Jae win was the 2021 Shriners in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. He won the Korean World Financial Group Championship in 2023. That's a good win, always a respectable field there. His last win on the PGA Tour, let's see here. He's 1 for 4. Sung J M is 1 for 4 in converting 36-hole leads. His last win on the PGA Tour was the 2021 Shriners Children's Open. That was his second win. Won by 4 shots over Matthew Wolff. And before that, interesting, very comparable course to some degree, but Sung Jae's first win in 2020 was at PGA National, at the Honda Classic. He is a player who, once again, was hurt to start this year. Went over and did some military training in South Korea, hurt his wrist. But he was showing promise at the end of 2025, had a top 20 in the first playoff event at the FedEx St. Jude. Did a couple top 20s at the Bay Kern in Macau. He's seen himself win before, but it has been a long time since he's closed a tournament. So Sung Jae's at the top, 64-69. This is his 4th Valspar Championship appearance. Finished 4th here back in 2019, and Sung Jae looks to join KJ Choi as the second South Korean player to win the Valspar Championship, and Choi won this in 2002 and 2006. Absolute legend, that guy is. This is good timing for Sung Jae, considering his most recent top 10 finish on tour was the 2025 Masters, where he finished tied 5th. That was the last time we've seen him in the top 10. So, Sung Jae, easy guy to pull for. You want nothing but the best for him. And a solid weekend of golf should be ahead. Him and Wave God Wilcox, his caddy, they look amazing through 2 rounds in Tampa. David Lipsky, he's making his 145th PGA Tour start this week. He's never won on the PGA Tour. He's won twice across the pond in Europe. But this is a little bit of an unknown situation for Lipsky. He played his college golf at Northwestern. I believe he was there down the stretch at the John Deere Classic last year. No, it was the 3M a couple weeks after. No. Lipsky finished tied 3rd at the Deere, which was eventually won by BC Brian Campbell in a playoff over Emiliano Grigio. And then a couple weeks later, Lipsky finishes 3rd at the 3M, and he's only had one top 20 through about 4 starts this year. So, what is he hanging on to conditional status or what? Now, Lipsky, he's played Valspar 4 times, best finish being 36th. I'm not sure he hangs around this weekend. Here was Lipsky on the feeling of being in contention.
I just try to play as well as I can and let the chips fall where they may, to be honest. But, I will say, maybe in contention on Sunday, back 9, I'm going to take a few more risks than I normally would. But, overall, game plan doesn't change too much.
Yeah, Lipsky. Let's see what the books have him featured at as far as third round matchups are concerned. Let's see if there's any potential fade options as far as David Lipsky is concerned. Let's see who they have him up against. You've got David Lipsky as a plus 100 dog against Doug Ghim. Ooh, that's tough. I mean, Ghim is at 7 under. He's 2 shots back of the lead. What an outstanding career that he had at Texas. He spoke after round 2 about enjoying this golf course. It's a thinker's golf course, and that's Doug Ghim's game. Not a bomber, a thinker, a plotter. Here's what he had to say about the Copperhead course there in Palm Harbor after his second round.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the few places where, like, you just really have to be patient. You could hit a couple of good shots and maybe not quite end up with the position that you would like. Like, you could hit a drive in the fairway and it might end up in the rough. And I think mentally it's probably the hardest ones that we play all year. The greens are so difficult. They get more baked every single day and it gets windy. So I think the mental battle of staying patient, sometimes out here it just feels like you're never going to have a birdie putt. So, yeah, I think it's definitely one of the hardest courses we play all year.
In my 5 years of high school golf in Florida, I played PGA National in Innisbrook quite a bit. I don't recall ever breaking 80 at either one of those golf courses. And especially not only the Copperhead course at Innisbrook, there's also the North course, which is debatably tougher than Copperhead. But these courses along the Florida swing, I mean, what tests? I know a lot of it is man-made water, man-made hazard. You know, a lot of these sharp Northeast golf fans, and really anyone who likes to find their ball after hitting a wayward tee shot, those people are not going to be the biggest fans of Florida golf. But you got to think, man. I mean, PGA National, you don't get a break. There's no relax hole. Like, when you go watch the Houston Open next week at Memorial Park, you know, there's a couple of those tee shots. Some of those guys could just close their eyes and fire away, and they'll go find it, no problem. PGA National, Bay Hill's a little more wide open. PGA National in Innisbrook, PGA National being in Orlando, Innisbrook being in Tampa, those are phenomenal tests. I mean, I can't speak highly enough, especially about just the Innisbrook property, those courses, the pure golf feel. Kind of has a European, the Copperhead course, especially when it gets soft, has a little bit of a European vibe around the greens. European parkland, I would say, I'd call it. Not links, obviously, but some of the softer parkland conditions you'd see in the UK. And you are seeing some Europeans rise to the occasion this week. Marco Ping, Matt Fitzpatrick, Jordan Smith, all 3 of them in that group of 5 players at 5 under and tied for 5th. You guys watched Fitzpatrick last week at the Players, right? I mean, I know he ended up bogeying 18 to give it to Cam Young, but he is extremely confident with the ball striking right now. I mean, Matt Fitzpatrick hits a golf shot right now. He doesn't look at it. He picks his tee up or gives the club back to the caddy and starts walking towards the next shot before the ball even lands. And those guys, Ping, Fitzpatrick, Smith, they look to join Luke Donald and Paul Casey as players from England to win the Valspar Championship. Donald won in 12, Paul Casey in 2018 and 2019. We'll hear from Fitzpatrick on the other side. We're going to take a quick break. This is the Golf Hour with Will Doctor and ESPN Houston. Here's a quick word from our friends at the Texas Golf Hall of Fame.
Mike Booker, chairman of the Texas Golf Hall of Fame and holder of a record number of Texas Golf Association championships.
The Texas Golf Hall of Fame is the foundation of golf in our great state. So many great individuals, Ben Hogan, Byron Nelson, Kathy Whitworth, Ben Crenshaw, and many others, lead the way in making golf in Texas known around the world. Now you can experience the history of Texas golf digitally at texasgolfhof.org and share with your family and friends. See you on the course.
Have Fitzpatrick and Koepka audio ready. Ryan, is my mic still on? Sorry. Sneds, Koepka, it on the top of the script 145. Focus going into the weekend. I believe that is as well. Okay, okay. I'll talk you through it.
You're listening to the Golf Hour
On ESPN 97.5 and 97.9 HD2.
from the Huntington Bank Studios. Here's Will Doctor.
Yeah, great Saturday morning to you. Phenomenal golf coverage ahead. As far as the Valspar Championship, I'm not sure if they're going to show the DP World Tour action on television tonight for the Hanan Classic there at Mission Hills in China. But you have an American in Jordan Gumberg. Jordan Gumberg, he's tied at the top at 17 under with Jorge Campillo. So PGA Tour winner Dylan Fratelli in second at 16 under. Great share of fourth there with Tristan Lawrence. He was on the PGA Tour last year. Great player out of South Africa. And then Win Yi Ding, the local kid, he's at 14 under, 3 back. So we'll get to some of the European stuff in the final segment. Want you to hear from more of the chasers. Starting really with Matthew Fitzpatrick. Matthew is at 5 under, 68, 69 to begin the week in Tampa. You look at both of his scorecards, very clean efforts. 1 under on the front on Thursday, Shot 2 under on the back to shoot 68 in the opening round. And then yesterday felt like a day where it was another one of those days where if Fitz just putts, at the same level in which he's striking the ball, you look at all of Fitz's numbers. He's, hitting fairways. He's positive in the strokes gained off the tee department. Right now he's third in the field on approach in Tampa, so he's hitting his irons better than most players in the field, and he's 16th around the greens. When he is making mistakes, he is leaving the ball in the right positions and getting up and down frequently. And his chipping around a very tough recovery golf course in Sawgrass, it was class. Now, I know it's tough to get aboard Fitz, with the, he's got the Skechers deal. He's with Skechers. I don't know. How do you sign with Skechers if you're Fitzpatrick? That's a little, that's a horrible brand if we're just being honest right now with ourselves here. But here was Fitz. Here was the 2022 U.S. Open champion, won at the Country Club. Here he was after round 2 in Tampa.
Play well. Just not had any breaks. Just 2 bogeys there on the back 9. Missed the fairway on 6 by 6 inches and got a flyer when it didn't look like a flyer. And then on the last there, same thing. Literally, somehow it's bounced left up the slope. Missed the fairway by 6 inches again. And in the semi-rough and got a flyer. So, nothing I can do about that. I can't really control it, but I feel like been playing well. Didn't feel like it was too stressful out there. So, hopefully some luck at the weekend.
So he's plus 750 to win this thing outright. And when I tell you Fitzpatrick has just been knocking at the door, second last week at the Players, 9th at the Phoenix Open, 14th at Pebble. All 3 of these starts came after the win at the end of the winter where he beat Rory McIlroy at the DP World Tour Championship. So he has closed in the big moment very recently. When you're talking about beating a top of the league, this is who Fitz beat at Humira Golf Estates at the end of November. He beat Rory McIlroy in a playoff. He fended off Tommy Fleetwood. He fended off Ludwig Oberg. Rasmus Højgaard was atop that leaderboard. Fitz had to beat a ton of big names, and plus he's an Open. He's a U.S. Open champion. This is where I go back to Shane. I don't mind saying, look, Shane did completely throw up on himself at Palm Beach 2 weeks ago. That is accurate. But let's have some respect for the major champions, okay? I think eventually down the road, Shane will win again. I don't think that's a hot take. You tell some of these, Twitter talking heads who, more caught up on Rory's Masters dinner menu, they'll tell you, Shane's never going to win again. Nonsense. And then a little bit of that talk after Ludwig last week, too, even though Ludwig got a big break after the Masters last year. That collapse for Ludwig Oberg was not talked about nearly enough. Now, you also have a seasoned vet in Brandt Snedeker in a tied for 5th. 65-72 for Sneds. How about the first round? How about Thursday for Sneds? The Vandy alum shooting a back 930 on the Copperhead course. Brandt's won a lot. Brandt, elite player. Forget what year he had the Masters in his hands, and threw it away on Sunday with the final round 82. But Brandt Snedeker is one of the most class human beings on the PGA Tour. 9-time PGA Tour winner, 2-time Ryder Cupper. The Sneds Foundation does more for charity than I would say any other player charity on the PGA Tour. He has a junior golf tour that he runs in Tennessee, the Sneds Junior Tour. You've got 17-year-old Blades Brown in the field this week, and Blades grew up on the Sneds Tour. And now Blades goes into the weekend, I believe, at 2 under par. Yeah, he tees off at 10:35 alongside Seamus Power. Blades Brown, he's in a tie for 27th at 2 under. But back to Sneds, this is a great story. His journey began way back in 2003 at the Spirit International, where he led Team USA to a gold medal. And once again, went on to win 9 times, contended in majors. But some rib injuries, couple other injuries have really deteriorated his distance, his ability to play a lot. Sneds came into this week off 4 missed cuts in a row. But he has liked this place over the years. Tied 8th in 2008, 4th in 2011. This is it's a great place for a vet. Distance does not matter at the Copperhead course in Innisbrook. This should be a great place for a vet like Sneds to get back in the winner's circle. Here he was and how he was feeling through 2 rounds.
Yeah, obviously feels good to be up there close to the lead. A little disappointed how I finished today. Had some chances to kind of get up there a little closer to the lead. But, all in all, golf course is playing really tough and tricky this afternoon. Trying to take the positives away from today. I kind of hung in there when things weren't going great and made some good swings coming down the stretch to kind of give myself some chances. And then, hopefully the putts will go in tomorrow. The greens got really crispy this afternoon, really hard to make putts. So hopefully kind of work on some things tonight and get ready for tomorrow. I'm excited for what this course can do look like on the weekend.
When this guy was in his prime, Brandt Snedeker, he rolled this Odyssey white hot putter, and he was electric with it. He just did that little pop stroke and was one of the best putters on the PGA Tour for the better part of 10 years. And let me tell you something. Brandt Snedeker is the last guy I would ever think that would change that club. He has won so much with that Odyssey White Hot. Well, the great Adam Schupak of Golf Week reported pre-tournament that Sneds is now using a tailor-made Spider. And Snedeker said this on the success that the rest of the tour is having with the Spider. If you look at the top 10 in the world, I believe Ludwig Oberg is the only player that is not rolling a Spider. And Snedeker said, look, if you're not paying attention to that, you're doing yourself a disservice. There has to be something to the success that the top 10 players in the world are having with the tailor-made Spider. The trusty that he used for, how about this? He used it was an Odyssey Rossi 2. My apologies, not a 2-ball or whatever they're called. I'm not with Golf WR. I'm not a technical, equipment geek. I'm like Snedeker. I want to put something in the bag and not mess with it again until the grooves need to be resharpened. Yeah, I'm sure I'm absolutely not putting a Spider in my bag. How about that? But it's working very well for Sneds this week. Despite benching the Odyssey Rossi 2 model that he's used almost exclusively since his college days at Vanderbilt. Now, a guy that we really need to talk about is Brooks Koepka, sitting at 4 under at 55-1 heading into the weekend. That is a good number. I know Brooks had a sour finish to his round yesterday. Missed a 3.5-footer for birdie on 18. That would have sent him to 5 under and only 4 back of these leaders who, and once again, Sungjae, nothing but credit to him, 2-time winner. He's not the killer closer that Brooks Koepka is. Really the only 2 players that Koepka has in front of him that he thinks are a real challenge are Matthew Fitzpatrick and Jacob Bridgman. Fitzpatrick in a tie for 5th at 5 under. Bridgman at 4 under in a tie for 10th. Here was Koepka on the fact that, he grew up here at Innisbrook. This would be a fitting place, to kind of say hello world again on the PGA Tour after the LIV stunt. Here was Brooks on Innisbrook and Valspar.
We played this golf course a bunch growing up when we were kids, like Florida Junior Tour events. I played it probably 10 times as a junior. So, it's only, almost 4 hours from my house. So we used to play events here a lot. So I feel comfortable. I know the golf course really hasn't changed, and just got to put it in play.
Yeah, I would say that Brooks Koepka at minus 120 over Patrick Cantlay, not a bad bet there. PointsBet is giving Koepka at minus 200 over Danny Walker. That's a little bit of a pricey ticket there at minus 200. Let's see, Brooks, he's minus 110 over Corey Connors. He's a plus 100 dog against Jacob Bridgman. And he's a minus 138 over Tony Finau as far as third round 3 balls. Here was Koepka on what his focus is going into the weekend.
Just put the driver in play. If I can drive it as well as I did today, I'll give myself a good chance. And just putt it a little better. I think the greens are starting to firm up a little bit, which is nice. I like the way that it's playing versus how it was playing yesterday.
Yeah, you look at Koepka's stats through 2 rounds. He is number 1 in this field. He is number 1 in this field in approach with the irons. He's picking up over 5.5 shots in the field through 2 rounds. And number 2, he has picked up over 1.5 shots on the greens to the field through 2 rounds. He is 26th in putting. If he can just continue to putt and not try to ram those 4-footers like he did on 18 yesterday, just rammed it right through the break. Would have got him to 5 under. Would have got him to 4 back. Let me tell you something. If you ask me, Will, if you had one outright that you could add going into the weekend? I've got Horschel at 125 to 1 pre-tournament. I've got Blades Brown 169 to 1 pre-tournament. If you ask me, Will, what's the one ticket you would add going into this weekend? I would tell you, value-wise, I'd say Koepka at 55 to 1. A guy who is due AF, that would be Fitzpatrick at plus 750. There's no doubt. The guy who's due, that's Fitzpatrick. He's been knocking on the door. The guy with proper value, sitting 5 back, is 3-time major champion Brooks Koepka at 55 to 1. We got to take a quick break. This is the Golf Hour on ESPN Houston with Will Doctor. And Houston, let me tell you about the fact that one of the most prestigious amateur golf championships in the world is coming back to Texas. The 2026 Spirit International Amateur Golf Championship takes place November 9th through the 14th at the number 1 ranked golf course in Texas, Whispering Pines Golf Club in Trinity. The Spirit brings together the best amateur men and women from 20 countries in a 54-hole Olympic-style competition featuring both team and individual gold medals. And if you follow professional golf, you already know the legacy. Past Spirit competitors include Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Victor Hovland, Rose Zhang, Lexi Thompson. They were all playing in the Spirit at Whispering Pines before they became major champions. Nico Echeverria, we saw him win a couple weeks ago at Palm Beach. He played in the Spirit for Columbia. Hannah Green won a couple weeks ago on the LPGA Tour. She represented Australia in the Spirit. David Ford made the cut this week at Valspar. How about Ford? What a straight ball striker. The guy is not missing any fairways. Wow, John Parr, he's 3 under through 10 to open his third round. Another European Englishman who the conditions are setting up perfectly for. Would love to see him make a move. But Ford, he represented Team USA alongside Tommy Morrison at the 24 Spirit. It's a great tournament. Opening ceremonies begin November 10th. Opening rounds running through Thursday. Tournament rounds running Thursday through Saturday, and closing ceremonies on the 14th. And yeah, it's bringing together the best college players, the best amateurs from around the world. It is doing that, 4 medals, but it's also bigger than golf. It's hosted by the Spirit International Amateur Golf Association, and this is a championship that supports critical charitable initiatives in healthcare, education, and food programs, with more than $13 million contributed to date. The 2026 Spirit International, come out and join the program. It brings the world's best young players to Texas, and it's putting Houston at the center of the global amateur golf map. Learn more at www.thespiritgolf.org. Once again, that is www.thespiritgolf.org. We'll be right back.
Mike Booker, chairman of the Texas Golf Hall of Fame and holder of a record number of Texas Golf Association championships.
The Texas Golf Hall of Fame is the foundation of golf in our great state.
Okay.
So many great individuals: Ben Hogan, Byron Nelson, Kathy Whitworth, Ben Crenshaw, Babe Zaharias, Tom Kite, and many more lead the way in making golf in Texas known around the world. Learn about the historic golf courses and the individuals that promoted the game through leadership, teaching, and passion. Texas and golf go hand in hand in the history of the game and camaraderie. Together we can honor the past, celebrate the present, and inspire future generations of Texas golfers. Golf is a sport for everyone, and I encourage you to experience the history of Texas golf digitally at texasgolfhof.org and share with your golf family and friends. That's texasgolfhof.org. See you on the course.
The Golf Hour continues now on ESPN 97.5 and 97.9 HD2.
From the Huntington Bank Studios, here's Will Doctor.
It's I was pretty surprised to see some people question Rory McIlroy's Masters Champions dinner menu. You have some people, and let me read it to you first. I think it's an A+ 100. I think he knocked it out of the park. I think Rory has absolutely phenomenal taste. Here's the appetizers on Rory's Masters Champions dinner menu. The appetizers go peach and ricotta flatbread, little hot honey on top. I mean, I would get full just on the peach and ricotta flatbread. So that's an A+. You got the rock shrimp tempura, fire. Bacon wrapped dates, phenomenal. Grilled elk sliders, A+. The first course, yellowfin tuna. Main course, filet mignon or salmon. And the dessert is sticky toffee pudding. Looks like a perfect Champions dinner. I mean, there's really nothing there. As for you have to tee it up in the first round. The day or two after. There's nothing really there that could lead to any maybe aggressive food poisoning or anything like that. I saw a couple comments. What are bacon wrapped dates? People have zero clue, zero taste. I mean, if you guys want Bubba Watson's menu, you can do chicken tenders, mashed potatoes, and confetti cake. But I'd say my all-time favorites were definitely Scheffler and Spieth's. Scheffler in 25 and 23, had the full barbecue spread from Kubi's in Dallas. And then Spieth had Texas barbecue as well. And let's hear from Jordan on, what he is most encouraged with as far as his game going into the weekend at the Valspar. And he's tied 16th at 3 under.
I think in general,
it's
all encompassing. I mean, I don't think the stats show. I feel like I'm gaining. I feel like the way I'm playing is I'm driving it. I think I'm driving it in the top 20. I think I'm striking it in the top 20. I think my short game's in the top 20. I think my putting's in the top 20. It's just I've just made some bad decisions or hit wrong tee shots at the wrong time or just missed contact that have cost me from having a chance to win 3 or 4 times to finishing where I finished. So it's a good place to be. Those are normally easier things to solve. They're just more reps, and I'm in a confident place. So I'm extremely frustrated when I don't get the most out of my round because I'm playing better than I'm scoring on a week like this week. And that's the frustrating part, but I'd much rather be on that side of it than anywhere else.
So once again, Spieth, 6 shots back going into the weekend at 3 under. He is still in this golf tournament. This is a tournament he won. It was his second PGA Tour win in 2015, just a few weeks before he won his first green jacket. Now he's in a great spot. And to leave you guys off, once again, what's my play as far as value going into the weekend? That is Brooks Koepka at 55-1. If you had to have another outright ticket, it'd be Brooks at 55. If you want a player who has just been there often over the last 4 weeks, it's definitely Matthew Fitzpatrick at plus 750. Everyone have a great weekend. Enjoy the Valspar coverage. Enjoy the March Madness coverage. Let's go Houston Cougars. Let's go Coach Sampson. Everyone have a positive, energized weekend. We'll talk again next week.